2. Spurs finished 4th in the Champions League group phase. Whilst we're sitting in, 16th, 15th, wherever we are in the league table. You just cannot write this stuff with Tottenham Hotspur right now, which carries on a great run in Europe. Only lost 1 game in the Champions League. Obviously won the Europa League last season. Spurs are most definitely cooking in Europe, and I'm here for it, man. I'm absolutely loving life in the Champions League. We get into the permutations a bit later on, but in terms of the game, Frank had to go with what he had. You know, not many options. We went for Moani up top. Solanke was the only recognised player on the bench, really, with alongside Dane Scarlett. And in these 2 games, Dortmund and Frankfurt is kind of our best games of recent months. And those are the 2 games where we've kind of just like gone with what we've had.
Yeah. And he's obviously now looks like he's found a bit of a formula potentially with this back 3 formation, which maybe he's going to go persist with, because I think he must have stumbled across it due to the fact that the players we had available. So he's kind of had to go with that, but I think it's worked. It's no 2 ways about it. It's definitely worked. And even against Burnley, I do sit here and say I don't think we deserved it, but we should have won because we had the chances to win. And we've created more chances that game than we have done in a lot of other games this season. So I do think the formation helps the forward players. I do think, you've got the defenders there to cover as well. The only question is obviously midfield. You're a bit short there because there's only 2 rather than like a third in there, but you do have kind of 2 floating number 10, so you kind of do create a bit of a box when you're on the ball. You still got the striker and you got the width with the wing backs. The problem is if you're playing that formation, every game, 2 games a week with limited rotation, how long does a doggy last at left wing back, without getting injured? And all of a sudden you've got another problem there. But I do think definitely it helps Javi, because he's got players around. Definitely it helps Odebear because he can kind of float out wide to help Spence and also go inside where he can play well as well. I think it helps the striker because he's got all of a sudden more players around him. I feel like when we play this 4-2-3-1, the striker Moani pretty much has maybe Javi, but the wingers are usually out wide, creating width. The fullbacks are usually in that half space, so you give it to the striker and he's got no one really near him. All of a sudden he's got 2 players now, he's got more options to lay off to, and then the number 10s also have the wing backs out wide. They've got the midfielders behind them to help them out, so I think it creates a better dynamic for us right now where we're at.
Well, what happens was in the 4-2-3-1, you've got the double pivot sitting so deep, and Javi comes deep to collect the ball. And then just Javi's isolated and the striker's isolated. It just makes no sense. So, yeah, I definitely feel this system is working a lot better. But isn't it quite unbelievable that we went with, like I said, 12 senior players yesterday, and Palhinha is the only one playing out of position, really. We had 1 fit player in every position.
And that's it.
Usually it's just we've got an overload of injuries in a certain position and we're, you got to play a few players out of position. We literally had everyone in their natural position apart from Palhinha. And by the way, I thought Palhinha had a fantastic game yesterday.
Yeah, and he's been, when he has filled in at centre-back, he's actually been all right. And this is the first time he's done it in a back 3. Which also, because he's in a back 3, gives him a bit more license to step in to midfield if need be. And I think it works for him because when he plays in midfield, first of all, you don't lose too much from his tackling, all that kind of stuff, because he's still in those positions. I think he won 7 out of 7 ground duels. He's so good off the ball. But a big problem for him when he's playing for us in midfield as the number 6 is he's not great at getting on the ball, turning, looking forward. His passing's limited, especially when he's rushed and got no time on the ball. So when he plays in that back 3, the game's ahead of him rather than behind him because he's not having to pick up the ball up the centre-backs and turn. He's the one getting the ball. He can drive forward, and he looks so much more comfortable with that little bit more time on the ball. And that ability to his passing all of a sudden isn't as erratic, and he's not getting caught on the ball enough as well. But he's still got that ability to get involved in the duels like he does in midfield. So I think it started to suit him a bit more playing at centre-back. Obviously, the problem is when it comes to when we're playing teams who are under more pressure and stuff, and it comes to his box defending and marking, and when we're being barraged by a team, does he have it in him to mark his man and all that kind of stuff? I'm sure he does, but we just have to see that. Those are obviously reservations. But in this kind of game, he was great. pretty perfect. And it's a weird situation because we had limited players, 12 players, but we were also able to make 5 changes from the weekend. So it was like last season.
It's because the players weren't eligible.
Yeah, because ineligible. Like last season, a bit of a different situation where we had all those injuries, but the players were pretty much playing the same players every game. But in this situation, because we have ineligible players for Champions League but can play in the Prem, we're actually able to keep somewhat of a freshish team because we can make changes from the weekend. But it just meant in the game itself, once players got tired and stuff, you can't really change it within the game because we had no options off the bench. But we didn't seem to get too tired, to be fair.
No.
Apart from certain players, Odebear, who had to go off. But by and large, we were able to keep some sort of energy levels within the game. Even late on, we were dominating in the last sections of the game. We weren't really under threat. And I do think Frank managed it pretty perfectly, to be fair.
Yeah, you got to give him credit. And yeah, I mean, I like the dynamic of Udogie and Spence at fullback. You know, 2 powerhouses on either side. I thought Udogie had an absolutely fantastic game at left back. I think defensively just adds so much to the team. I think Cuti Romero, man, he put in a proper performance last night, didn't he? He was just so dominant in every area of the pitch. Like in the first half, I felt like, I said it yesterday, just controlling that game from deep. Always there to make an extra number in attack as well. And the set pieces, man, he's just so vital to each and every set piece. We scored from a free kick, his header at the back post, but like from every corner as well. Like they were aiming for him every time.
Yeah, incredible. It's so rare to see a centre back within our possession game, like run a game like Romero can. Like without a deep lying playmaker, he's the one basically tasked with finding those little incisive passes in between the lines and getting Tottenham on the front foot. But he's also a pace setter as well. Like he can slow the game down, but you can also quicken it up with one quick pass in between the lines and bam, we're going. And he's incredible at that. He's so good. We've been so reliant on him on the on the ball, especially recently, and from set pieces. Such a threat. He set up a chance for Palhinha. He set up the goal for Moani. It was a real Roy the Rovers captain's performance. Anything that went in behind, he swept up easily. They were missing their best striker, Callum Wendo, but they just had nothing up against Romero. Any duel, he was coming out on top.
I mean, Callum Wendo's only been there for like 3-4 games.
Yeah, he was just phenomenal, Cuti Romero, and I know he's had some defensive mishaps, but he's just so good. I know he lapses in concentration defensively, but when you get him playing like he did yesterday, he's just unstoppable, imperious. And in a big game on a big night when we needed to win to make sure we got into that top 8, he stepped up, and he does so often step up in these big games, Romero. When he's fully concentrated and he's locked in, there's very few better than him.
That's the problem I have with Romero. Like in these games, you're never going to fault him. You're never going to question him in these kind of games, in the big nights. It's when the game ain't so big and the game is just like a usual Premier League game. That's when those lapses of concentration can come in. Mm-hmm. And for a player like Romero and the quality that he has, he needs to be switched on every single game and put these kind of performances consistently to be, he's already considered, one of the best defenders in the Premier League. But if he could cut those lapses of concentration out of his game, and he should be able to at this kind of age and with this kind of experience behind him, he could be considered as one of the best defenders in the world. And I think that is what's holding him back.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's why when you does go to international football and it's like a tournament over a month, right? It's a lot easier to just lock in for a month than it is for a whole 38-game season where it's every game it's relentless. And I think Mourinho used to say the same stuff about Pogba. He said Pogba, he was very inconsistent with Man United. And, some games would be great, some games he wouldn't. And he was talking about him. He said, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes off to the World Cup and is player of the tournament and they go and win it, and he's incredible because if you just get him in an isolated environment like a World Cup camp where it's just like he doesn't have the distraction, he can just lock in for a whole month. I'm sure he can be incredible. But when it comes to him playing week in, week out in the Prem, he can lose his concentration. Also, on weekends, maybe he goes out, maybe he has friends, whatever. There's distractions there, isn't there? But for a month, he can lock in and he can be incredible. And maybe Romero, look, I don't think Romero's like someone who parties or anything like that. I'm just saying there are other distractions there when it comes to the season, and it's a long season and it's a relentless schedule, and maybe it's harder to just lock in every single game for 38 games for someone like him, whereas when he gets to international level, you see him lock in for a month and he's incredible every tournament, and they win every tournament he plays in, essentially, and every that they participate in. So I don't know what we do about that. Maybe it's a case of we need to give him a bit more rest than we do, but he's captain. We rely on him. He's one of our best players. So we need him every game.
I mean, that's the difference between like a really good centre back and a top centre back. You look at these players like Saliba and Gabriel and your Ruben Diaz's and Virgil van Dijk's. I know Virgil van Dijk, maybe Virgil van Dijk at his peak. Like, these guys are just relentless. Every single game, concentration levels, top of their game, week in, week out. You might see the odd defensive mishap, every so often, but 9 times out of 10, they're going to put in a 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10, something like that. Romero's just not of that category just yet.
I think you put him in one of those teams, he might be, though.
Maybe.
That's what I would argue.
Yeah. But look, fantastic performance yesterday. 4 goal contributions in his last 4 games. He's just on a rich vein of form.
Is there an argument that he is now the best goal-scoring centre-back in the league? Or best attacking centre-back?
He's got the same number of goals in the Premier League as Van de Ven, doesn't he?
Yeah, him and Van de Ven. But he's got more than Gabriel. I know Gabriel was injured, to be fair. Yeah. But more than Gabriel.
I think goals to minutes, probably Gabriel's got more.
Maybe, but he's like relentless at the moment. You can't stop him.
Yeah.
And he's breaking free. He's winning. I mean, even against Bournemouth, I don't think he ever actually got an assist. But in that game, it was mental, the amount of headers he was winning in the box and creating chances for us. He's at the moment. Look, you also have got to credit Frank, because when you watch those corners, it's a clear, deliberate ploy to get him free at that back post.
Hey, big up to Jorgensen, man.
Jorgensen, whoever's the one setting it up. But yeah, obviously Jorgensen's our set piece coach. You got to big him up, because you watch the corners, the routines there. What happens is the Romero is peeling off at the back post, and they block off anyone marking him. So every time he's completely free, and then the delivery's good, and he's able to get a header into the danger zone or score the goal, and creates chances. And he's also, you got to say, his actual headers are brilliant. Like the accuracy, the power. He scored one brilliant one against Burnley on the weekend. But the way he places those headers as well, it was a brilliant header right into the path of Moani on yesterday. Set one up for Palhinha. It's rare to see a bigger threat than him at the moment than Romero in the league at the moment.
Yeah, it just seems like from that aspect we've got one up on every opponent that we play right now at our set pieces. Like, we're scoring one every game, literally. Yeah. So it's fantastic, but I would just love to see the team click around them. Yesterday it did, to be fair. Yesterday it did. So don't take away from the performance yesterday, even though we did open and scoring with a set piece. I felt like for the majority we were so dominant. We were controlling the game. There was a bit of a period after we scored the first goal where we sat back a little bit, but it soon kind of changed and we were back on the front foot again. Yeah,
I think sometimes in these games, especially away from home, you get the goal. Especially we were saying at half time, we were unlucky obviously not to be in the lead, and we were saying it's very important as soon as possible we get that goal, because the longer it goes on, the more you've got to stretch yourself. We don't have options to change it. You want to get that goal and just be able to manage the game and control the game. And as long as it's 0-0, like, it's going to be very difficult to do that, especially in the latter exchanges. So we got the goal early on, and then I think it's right, you kind of just make sure you're not conceding for the next 5-10 minutes. Make sure you just got this game under control. And then he brought on Solanke. We got a bit of a second wind. We started to dominate again. We went on to kill the game and win 2-0. So I thought he managed it perfectly. It was good from him. It was good from the Spurs. It was like a very mature performance. No panic. It could have been a game where the circumstances went against us, but absolutely we controlled the game. And maybe last season, we obviously went to Frankfurt away, and we we won the game in difficult circumstances, hostile atmosphere and stuff like that. Obviously, it was a different in this occasion because Frankfurt were out, didn't have anything to play for, rested a few players. So obviously, going into it would have been very disappointing we didn't win. But I think just the way we managed the occasion and didn't let the nerves get to us or anything, and we just came out with a comfortable 2-0 victory away in Frankfurt. You got to be pleased with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And going in at 0-0, I had my worries that, we were on top. We should have scored, only going in 0-0 with only 12 players available. You're thinking, well, are they going to tie here? If we don't get a goal early in the second half, this could become a bit of a dangerous situation. But it was so vital we scored at the time that we did, because if we didn't, you never know what could have happened. The rest of the game might have ended up drawing 0-0.
Well, it happened against Burnley. We should have been leading. We go in level, and that cost us, really, to be honest. The fact that we didn't go in winning, and then we let the game get away from us, and we ended up having to snatch a draw. So we already have an example of how it can go wrong if you're not taking advantage of those moments you're on top. But thankfully, we didn't let it get to us. We got on top, and then we went out to see the game.
How nice was it yesterday, though, to win 2-0, and the two players that scored the goals were two strikers. Kolo Muani scoring a goal and Dominic Solanke scoring a goal. When's the last time we could say that?
Who would have thought? Who would have thought strikers can actually score? Although they were assisted by two defenders, one from our team and one from their team. Yeah. But doesn't matter as long as they're on the score sheet. That's the most important thing. Great team, Awani, a nice striker's effort, and then Solanke going through like prime Harry Kane. Great to see him looking sharp and fit again. And obviously didn't start the game because he played 90 minutes. Probably the plan wasn't to play him 90 minutes against Burnley, and given the circumstance, they decided to push him that extra bit. That probably cost him starting in this game, but he came on, looked fit as a fiddle, scored a brilliant goal, and let's hope we see more finishes like that from Solanke moving forward.
Yeah, do you think he starts on the weekend against? He must start on the weekend against City, isn't it?
I do. I think we're going to need him. And you know what? I think he's looked all right, Solanke. I know against West Ham, he was looking really rusty, and off the back of that, you're thinking, should he be in the Champions League squad up against Matty's tail? But look, credit to Frank. He clearly sees more than us behind the scenes, more than we know. That's obvious. He sees him in training every day. He made the decision. Solanke is going to offer us something more than Tel can offer. He made the decision. Solanke got 2 goals in 2 games, and absolutely spot on. Massive credit to Thomas Frank, because I wouldn't have made that decision based on the evidence I had. And credit to Frank. He made the right decision off the back of a lot of people saying it was a bad decision. Like, I was definitely saying it, and proved us wrong.
Yeah, he really did. 2 players who I thought went a bit under the radar yesterday was Archie Gray and Pape Matar. I think both of them put in such mature and accomplished displays away in Europe in a difficult night and difficult circumstances, as you were saying before. Particularly Archie Gray, his performance definitely went more under the radar maybe as Pape, because we were talking about Pape after the game. Didn't mention Archie too much. And, these kind of experiences for Archie are just kind of invaluable, aren't they?
Definitely.
For a young player coming through, probably the first time that these 2 guys have played in a double pivot together or in central midfield together, just them two.
I'm trying to think. I think they started together against Burnley, but I think Sarr was in the 10, wasn't he? So I think they didn't, as in the first game of the season, so you're probably right about that. I think it was very similar to the performance that Bergwijn and Gray gave against Dortmund, in the sense that they just did the simple things, very mature. Just their job was essentially to facilitate the wide areas and get Javi involved and get Odegaard involved, but they didn't have to do anything too special. Very much just playing it safe, sideways. I think Sarr was a bit more progressive. I think he was a bit more sharper in terms of his passing, like when he got the ball, just sharply, quick pass, similar to Bergwijn. He's a bit sharper as well, whereas Gray was just maybe sitting a bit more and wasn't forcing the issue much with their passing. But both of them put in very mature performances and made sure that they were just doing their job correctly. And it also, I thought, brought more out of the rest of the team, I felt.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're 100% spot on when you compare it to, Gray and Bergwijn. It's just something that we haven't seen in the Premier League, where we have these kind of midfielders playing together, and the passing and the moves just look so much more crisper. And I think those 2 midfielders, or the midfielders on display last night and against Dortmund, need to get so much credit for that, because it looks so kind of bitty and it looks so off when a Palhinha is in there or a Bentancur is in there and you've got these 5-yard passes going astray. Maybe it's to do with the lack of space as well on the pitch in a Premier League game, and we're afforded a lot more space in the Champions League, but you got to give credit where credit's due.
And I think maybe not as physical in the Champions League, especially against the German teams who do like to press. But again, yesterday they were already out. Maybe they were just not as motivated as they usually are. I don't think Frankfurt were awful, but they weren't great either, let's be honest. They were pretty easy to contend with. They did have a couple of chances, but other than that, we pretty much kept them at arm's length for most of the game. They didn't really force the issue too much.
They had 2 chances, one in the first half, one in the second half, and that was about it.
That was it. I also felt like even if they scored that, we'd probably go and get the winner anyway. So maybe they found it easier in this game, a bit more space to play. And also felt like the formation probably helped them a bit, because I felt like they had 3 centre-backs behind them, so always had that protection. They had the wing-backs there. They had the 2 number 10s in front of them instead of just Javi. And they had the striker in front. So I think just a bit more options. I really feel like this formula right now definitely benefits us and it benefits the team. I think this is something we should be persisting with. The problem is limited options at fullback now. So obviously he played Doggy at left centre back, but he now has to play wing back. We have Van der Ven, Danso, Romero to play there, but if only Dragusin to replace them, so only have one
I wouldn't
player.
be against persisting with Palhinha with the performance that he put in yesterday at right centre back. Like, he was marauding forward, putting in these unbelievable challenges. His passing looked decent yesterday as well.
Yeah, I'd be in favour of it, to be fair. So he can play an option there. I think the big worry is Spencer and Doggy. If one of them gets injured, what do we do? Wing back. We don't really. Obviously, maybe Robertson comes in, so he's an option. But if he does, we'll have to wait and see there. With Porro out for a month.
I mean, we did sign a Brazilian fullback.
We did, and to be fair, I think that would help him being a wing back rather than fullback as well. If he does get an opportunity.
Yeah.
If he's ready, we'll have to wait and see. But I think him having that protection behind him, allowing him to get further forward, will help him as well.
If he's not completely ready, why not sign him and kind of like loan him back or loan him out at least?
Yeah, I think we should.
But there's no talk of us loaning him out.
Nope.
So if there's no talk of it, then surely he's got to get some minutes. Not going to just sit him on the bench for 6 months.
I'd like to see him play a bit just to see. You never really know, do you, until they get a chance. So obviously you see him in training and stuff, and you can maybe hazard a guess, or you can make your assumptions. Maybe Frank looks at him saying, look, he's not ready, but maybe sometimes they surprise you and you played them and they can equip themselves better than you think. So I would like to see him. I'm not saying like start him against City or anything, but maybe a few minutes here and there just to bed him in and see how he does. It's going to be difficult though, because the next 4 games are just so difficult. Like, where do we ever find a chance to give him minutes? But let's see. But yeah, the big worry is if Doggy and Spence do pick up an injury, what do we do in that situation with Porro currently out? Does Gray go to fullback? Maybe Sarr? Could he play at wing back potentially? We've also theorised Frank. He's played a winger there sometimes at Brentford with Lewis Potter. So he's one of our wingers capable of playing that kind of position.
The thing is, right, from now until the time Porro's back, it is only 1 game a week. There's no Champions League
March,
football.
Yeah,
it's only 1 game a week.
Yeah.
So I think literally there's 4 games until Porro comes back. Obviously 4 big games at that, but it shouldn't be too much strain on the squad.
Yeah,
hopefully they'll be able to stay fit.
Yeah, true. And I remember in this period last year, I know we didn't have the same level of games, but it was this period where we obviously got through to the top 8, and we actually managed to get, I think, 3 wins in a row just to stave off that relegation until we went again to the 2 games in a row, 2 games in a week. Back in March, we started to struggle again. So maybe, but then again, it's 1 game a week, but it is difficult games. That's the thing.
That's true.
It's very difficult. Last year, I think it was like Ipswich, United, and Brentford. I think it was. We won 3 in a row.
Yeah, 2 players who I thought excelled yesterday, and they're coming on leaps and bounds in Spurs shirts, so Javi and Wilson Odobert. Odobert obviously was electric in the first half, kind of tired out of it in the second. Javi, he just seems right at home in the Champions League, doesn't he? Like, every time we play Champions League, he just comes alive. I want to see that kind of level of performance. We've seen flashes in the Premier League.
Hasn't had a bad game, has he, in the Champions League?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we've seen flashes in the Premier League, don't get me wrong, but nowhere near the level of consistency that we've seen in the Champions League.
And I think gets more space, it's less physical, he's much more at home. Premier League football is something you have to get used to. He's played Champions League football before, so it's not something he has to get used to. He knows that level, he knows the pace. Also, I think it's no surprise last 2 games have been Bundesliga teams.
True.
And, he's played in the Bundesliga and excelled in that level. So great that he played that well. And I also do think he is improving generally in the English game and in Premier League anyway. But I think, the Champions League, he's definitely found a different level. He's much more at home. He's controlling games. Brilliant ball for Romero for the opening goal. Scored after 2 minutes. Was unlucky that there was goal was ruled out for offside. He's just providing a lot more, isn't he? He's looking so much more dangerous and so much more at home at that level.
But it's just like we talk about time and space and physicality in the Premier League, which is obviously there. But yesterday, I felt like every time Javi got the ball, he was crowded by like 3 or 4 men. You know, they weren't allowing Javi the time and space on the ball. Maybe the level of physicality is different in the Premier League, but I felt like Javi, every time he got the ball, was able to weave his way past players, nice little tricks to get him out of play, and you know they were fouling him a lot. It was a top performance from Javi yesterday.
I think the main thing why his performance, especially in the last 2 games, is why he's been so much better. Is I think the role when he's in the front 3 and with dual number 10s rather than in the number 10 in the pocket.
Him more, yeah.
It suits him because he's got so many more options. He's got the winger, he's got the wing back to his left. He's got number 10 next to him. He's got a striker close to him. They're all much more closer to him, and he's got 2 midfielders he can play off as well. Whereas I felt like when he's in the number 10 in the 4-2-3-1, in theory, you should have players there, but the fullbacks don't get forward as much. That leaves the wingers much further wider, which means that he's a lot more isolated than he is here.
Yeah, like how many times did we say, like at the beginning of Javi's tenure at Spurs, that look, he's doing all the right things. Mm-hmm. He's doing the right things, but what are you supposed to do when he doesn't have players in 20 yards of him?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And now he does.
And now he does, and we'll seeing better Javi.
Exactly. So I think that's a main reason why, because I thought he was better as well against. I know Burnley, he had some loose passes, but he also was creating chances. He hit the bar, like he did have moments. So I think this little formation tweak is definitely helping him out, and I think he needs players to play off Javi. I think that's where he comes alive, and I think we're definitely seeing that in the last couple of Champions League games.
Yeah, so all in all, brilliant night for Tottenham Hotspur. It was an emotional night for a lot of clubs. Jose, the goalkeeper coming up for the corner and seeing them through into the last 32 into the playoff. A lot of kind of crazy games last night in the Champions League, but we finished 4th. We're going to play one of Juventus, Atletico, Club Bruges or Galatasaray. Not the easiest ties, but also not the hardest ties. I'm quite happy with that kind of quartet. I think Spurs can, on their day, I think even what we've shown this season in the Champions League, can probably knock out any of those 4 teams. Ideally, I'd want to avoid Atletico, but I still think, like, even on our day, we could beat Atletico.
Yeah, I think, look, Atletico showed they're beatable. They just lost at home to Bodo. I'm not saying, fair play to Bodo, by the way. They deserve such a special mention after last night, making it through. By the way, I didn't realise I hadn't played a league game for 2 months. So they're also in their off-season at the moment. And they've just beaten City. They've beaten Atletico. They drew with Dortmund on the way. They drew with us. So they have their story just keeps going on, and who knows how far they can get. But look, they're not going to win it. But I think they deserve a special mention because I've heard so many people over the last few months to try and discredit Tottenham's Europa League win, just bash Bodo constantly. Robbie from AFTV, Simon Jordan on TalkSport, constantly saying, "Oh, you played Bodo, they're rubbish." Robbie's like, "Oh, Bodo," constantly. Well, look, they proved they're even against Europe's elite. They are competitive and they're a good team. They're not easy to play against. They play great football, and I'm so pleased for them that they made it through to the round of the playoff round of the Champions League, because they deserve it, and they're a great little team, a great town. So big up to them.
You know what? I was there obviously at Bodo for the semi-final last year, and it's nothing short of what that town and what that fan base deserve, because they're such a top fan base, such nice people. And, they were just delighted to be where they are, competing in Europe's, elite competitions like the Europa League and Champions League. And now, they've taken, like, when I was there, they were like, the fans were basically like, there's no chance we're beating Tottenham. Like, the disparaging between the 2 clubs and, everything about it. Like, they were just happy to be playing in a game like that, a semi-final of Europe. And now they've beaten Man City on their own patch and gone away to Atletico. Like, it's just unbelievable.
How are you going to Atletico? When I watched some of the highlights as well, and it wasn't a lucky win. Like, they deserved it. They missed chances as well. They're getting better.
They should have beaten us as well this year. Let's be honest.
Yeah, they battered us. Missed a penalty. We're 2-0 up. They battered us as well, and we got so lucky. So credit to them, and whoever plays them.
Interesting to see. Do you think anyone would be picking up some players that they've got there, because they perform at such a high level?
I think people will be looking at them. I know a lot of them play for the Norway national team now. The thing is with them, it's a bit similar to like like Brentford, like everything is the coach has been there for 8 years. Everyone is like on the same page there. You take someone out of that environment, how do they perform rather than within it? So I think it's a complicated situation on that front in terms of how good are they? Like, are they just good because they're a cog in this system that they've developed?
The Norwegian national team is thriving as well.
Yeah, it's also true. But look, they probably will have some players looking at them, but they're just a great little team together. I think they're on the journey together. Every year, it's like they take an extra step. It's like first they get into Europe, then they beat a few teams, then they get to a semi-final, and now they're first in the Champions League, and now they're at the playoff. So it's just an incredible story, and I think it just deserves a lot of recognition, and it's a fair play to them.
The capacity of the whole city can fit inside the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and there'll be empty seats. Like, that's just crazy. So,
and I just hope, I don't know, I feel like they're scoffed at by a lot of people with big voices and big platforms, and I don't like. It's like a way of just getting at Tottenham for some reason. They have to scoff and put down Bodo, and they don't deserve that. And like they deserve a lot of credit and a lot of they deserve recognition for what they've achieved. But anyway, going on to our options, as you said, Bruges, Juventus, Galatasaray, and Atleti. Yeah, I think, given how we played in the Champions League, we should definitely, and as well, given the fact that we've, off the back of winning a European competition last season and off the two-legged format, these teams the players should have no fear. We know when Romero and Van de Ven, the fact that they obviously came back and we won it last season in the knockout stages, they should have no fear. When they lock in, they know they can really lock in and put really good performances. Obviously, Atletico Madrid, they have such good players. They have a manager who's their goal, their dream is to win that Champions League. They've been so close on so many occasions, and that's like the main thing that's missing from him. I think once he wins that Champions League, he's getting out of Atletico, because I think he's just wanting to win it so bad. I think that's why he's carrying on. And so they're going to be super motivated. They're going to be so tough to play against. They're super aggressive. They're one of those teams that just won't take any shit from us. But as we saw, with Bodo, they needed to win that game as well, Atletico, to get in the top 8. They lost, so it wasn't exactly a nothing game for them. And so it shows they're beatable. Juventus are a team they're in transition at the moment. Good attacking manager with Spalletti, but they have a lot of just not quite clicking in terms of how they're playing, but they do seem to be improving, Juventus, of late. They do seem to be getting their act together. Yildiz, obviously, what a talent he is. They do, on paper, they got good players and a good team.
They're on a very good run of form.
Yeah, they're starting to click. So maybe that is one you've got to be worried about. But as well, Spalletti isn't a classic Juventus manager. Like we're not going to be coming up against a team who's going to try and defend.
Keeping a hell of a lot of clean sheets, though.
But in Napoli, he was quite an offensive team. But he plays in a different kind of way. Juve, like Spalletti, he's gone away from proper formations. He says he plays a lot more of a relationism kind of style of play, and obviously we're very positional. So whether one of those two kind of conflicting tactics meet, who comes out on top, I don't know. They have a lot of good players there. You can't rule them out, but I also think they're beatable again. Obviously, Galatasaray and Bruges, we have better players, so you got to think we might have the upper hand. But they both have other things going for them. Bruges have been brilliant in this group stage, had taken some of the best teams to the sword. They're a tough nut to crack, especially at home. They're super exciting. They're a super fast-paced attacking team. So that's something to be really worried about.
Club Bruges will be like a similar tie to Bodo.
Yeah, exactly. Was maybe a bit more quality. Yeah. So they're going to be a tough team to play against. And Galatasaray, they just have that home form, don't they? They have that patch where if you don't react well to it, you can find yourself 2-3-0 down before you even know it. So, but we have a better team than them, and on the flip side, you could maybe lose the away leg 2-0. You could probably win the home leg 2-0.
Yeah.
No, 3-0. Sorry, knowing them. So, I think there's reasons to be positive about all of those teams. But obviously they're going to be playing each other, aren't they? So depends who comes out on top in that knockout round there in that playoff.
Yeah.
We'll know tomorrow who plays who.
I'm just trying to look at Galatasaray's home form. Is it actually that good, or is it overstated a little bit? Because I feel like it's good, but it's not we can go there and win Galatasaray. Don't get me, like when we went to Galatasaray last year, they played us off the park and went 3-0 up, and we got 2 goals back. But like we created enough chances to even overturn that, even with 10 men. Like Will Lancashire got sent off, but by the end of that game, we easily could have drawn 3-3 with an understrength team.
Definitely. I mean, we also could have easily lost 5-1 or whatever it was, but they missed a bunch of chances. And we got lucky. But they did shit the bed a bit late in the game because we were down to 10 men and we got a goal and they were panicking. So
if we go there with Mickey and Kuti and a back 3 system, the way I think we can go win there.
Yeah, I think
really
so.
Believe that.
I think so. I agree.
But anyway, look, interesting. The draw's going to be tomorrow. I'm not sure what time the draw is, but we'll be covering it here. We'll go live when the draw does happen. But all in all, very good day in the Champions League, and we look forward to the next round. That's for sure.
Yeah, but
no Champions League till March now.
And obviously, what's Ed said about the fact we did finish 4th in this competition. We're currently 14th in the Premier League. What conclusions do we take from that? Because a lot of people will say, Frank's done a great job in this competition, which is true. We are 4th, so he deserves credit for that. Why have we done so well in the Champions League? Is it a case of he's managed it really well? Is it a case of just, easier opponents? Is it a case of the Premier League in general is just so dominant in this competition? What has led to us being 4th here and 14th in the Prem?
I think all those things all together come into play, because you actually look at it. We played, how many games we played? 8 games, yeah. 4 out of the 8 teams all finished in the bottom 6. So that's obviously to show that we played, had weak opposition,
and the other 4, we only won 1, which was Dortmund, and we drew the other 2, which we probably should have lost.
Exactly. So we beat the 4 teams that finished in the bottom 6. The other 4 were struggles. And on top of that, you've got the English teams, and the physicality of the English league is so much stronger than everyone else. So there's that as well. And I think, Frank has also done a good job managing the situation. So I don't think it's just one reason, or I think it's everything put together has just made a really good campaign for us.
Yeah, I agree. I think when it comes to the balance of how all the games went in the group, we probably were 5 points better off, I would say, than we should have been, considering we got 2 draws against... 4 points better off, because we got 2 draws against Bodo and Monaco, where we should have been battered in those games. And we got a win against Villarreal, which maybe we didn't deserve. If we take those 4 points, it puts us in 13th. But look, you can't look at that. We got those points, and I wouldn't say we were lucky to be in the top 8 because we earned it, but definitely there was a couple of games where we were lucky. But look, I'm sure you go every team in the league, there's probably games that were lucky to get points in. So we earned it. We obviously probably maybe deserved something out of PSG, which we didn't get. You can probably put a point there or something if you wanted. So look, we've done very well. But I definitely think the main thing is, we were saying it before the draw was made, when the draw was made and it's come to pass, we got a very fortunate draw. I think that's a major reason for it, to be honest. And we predicted 17 points and we got it. So we were spot on in that prediction. But we've done very well to get the draw that we did, because, as you said, 4 in the bottom 6. Who else has had that? I don't know.
What gives me hope about, going into the last stage of the Champions League is the way we played against Dortmund and the way we played against PSG. 2 games against PSG, how we played against them. So it shows that, obviously PSG won the Champions League last season, and Dortmund are a very strong team. Like, Dortmund got to the final 2 years ago. So it shows that we can mix it with these kind of teams in the Champions League. I worry if we're coming up against any of the English teams. But against the European sides, I think we can handle it a little bit.
I also think with Frank, obviously he did it against PSG, but maybe in those specific games when he has a plan, like I do think he can maybe come up with a plan in these knockout ties to make things difficult. Not saying to get through a win, but maybe to make it competitive, and maybe that's something he could be good at. I think when it comes to him having a consistent formation and structure and tactic in a week in, week out in the Premier League, we are struggling because he's chopping and changing. We need consistency. We're not getting in our rhythm. But when it comes to just having a specific plan for these knockout ties, that probably might suit him.
Yeah. If I was to ask you to make a prediction, where do you think we end up in the Champions League?
I'm going to say quarters. We bow out.
Yeah, I would say quarters, and if we're lucky, semis.
Well, I guess we don't know the side of the draw, do we? So It's hard to say. But we're going to be playing one or oh no, we don't know. We don't know who even playing in the quarters, do we?
Yeah, it could be anyone.
Could be
out of
anyone.
like 8 or 9 teams.
Yeah, okay, so no point looking.
So we'll know tomorrow the pathway.
We'll know tomorrow.
So obviously keep an eye on We Are Tottenham TV because we'll know exactly the pathway and we'll be discussing it in depth tomorrow. But that is the situation with the game yesterday. Let's move on